Okay, so hello everyone. Today let me show you how I calibrated my set of metric micrometers, range 0 to 150 millimeters from Shars. It is a set of 6 micrometers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got this from Amazon for $129. Overall, there's really nothing bad I can say about this set, except that when I got this, I could not find the adjusting range anywhere. Well, fortunately, I already have an adjusting range from this micrometer right here, which I got from Shopee a few months back for only, I would say, less than 300 pesos. Believe it or not, I saw this same micrometer being sold at City Hardware for about, I would say, 1,300 pesos. So imagine that, there's a difference of 1,000 pesos. So anyway, before we begin, let me inform you now that I'm not a machinist, nor am I a trained professional. I am only merely an enthusiast and a DIYer. So if there are trained professionals out there, feel free to give me your input. So let us begin. We will start with this very cheap micrometer right here. Well, this micrometer right here is still considered cheap, a cheap set compared to a Mitutoyo or a Starlet, but for a DIYer like me, I'm already very happy with this one. Well, including this one. So let's begin. Okay, so I've already purposely put this micrometer out of alignment, or out of calibration, if you will. So as you can see, when I set it to 0, I hope you can see that. When I set this to 0, it is giving us a reading of 0.05 millimeters. So we are out of calibration by 0.05. So the trick now is how we're going to bring this 0 all the way here. Now the way we accomplish that is we are going to first lock the spindle, and we are going to clamp the spindle on a vise like so. I'll show you that next. Okay, so before clamping this down on the vise, the first thing that we'll do is to wrap the spindle with a piece of rubber like so. This is so that the vise can grip the spindle much better, and wrap it again with a piece of cardboard. This is intended to protect the spindle, or the surface of the spindle, when you clamp the vise down. So make sure that you've got grip. Okay, so now that is done. Okay, so we need to loosen this ratchet right here with the smaller end of this adjusting wrench. As you can see, there's a hook with which you are to insert this in this small here. It allows you to grip the ratchet and loosen the spindle down like so. So you loosen the spindle, you don't have to, the ratchet, you don't have to take the ratchet all the way out. Now the next thing that we are going to do is to pull this thimble out, and if you can accomplish doing that without having to twist the thimble, the better. Be advised, at times it takes a considerable amount of force to do so. So we'll do that now. Okay. Okay, so that's there. So now what we are going to do is to set this on alignment. So I'll change the angle of the camera so you'll have a much more better look. Okay, so I've managed to change the angle, so I hope you can see that clearly now. The light is getting the way. So now we've already managed to move this remove the spindle out, or pull the spindle out. So now we can move the spindle freely and set it to where we want to set it, like so. So now it is set on 0. But just out of curiosity, if you're curious, let's take the entire thing out. I've just taken out the ratchet right here and pull this out. Inside is only a tapered this, what you call this, a taper at the end. So if you lock it down, it's going to tighten itself on its own. So like so. Okay, we do that now. We do that, we press down. Okay, so we bring the spindle back on, and then we can, using the smaller end of the adjusting wrench again, tighten down the ratchet. Okay, so that's actually it. So now we can take this micrometer off the vise, and let's see our if we've done a correct job. So anyway, I hope you can see that. Now that is set to 0. No, that's not exactly 0. If you still want a much more exact precision, okay, let's do that again. Okay, so that's not exactly 0, but if you really want to have that set right on there on the money, the next thing we'll do is we use the bigger end of the adjusting wrench, and there's a hole on this side right here. We can use that to minutely adjust the I don't know what you call that, the body. Anyway, okay, so it's there, so right there. So now we're able to adjust that. We unlock the spindle, take it out, see if it's set to 0. So now we're right on the money. So anyway, that is how you set a micrometer. So the next thing we'll do is we'll move to the set of micrometers. I'll be right back. Okay, so now let's move on as to how I accomplished to set this set of micrometers. Well, the real question that was on my mind when I first got this is that how can I be sure that these gauge standards right here provided for are exactly true? Take for example this 25mm standard. If we are to measure this with a digital caliper, we might be disappointed with the result. Okay, so it's giving us a reading of 24.99. Let's put that to 0. Let's see if it's 0. Okay, so that's giving us a reading of 0. Okay, so let's measure that again. So it's giving us a reading of 24.99, 25, 24.99, okay, 24.98, 24.99. So it may lead us to think that this standard right here is not exactly true. However, the problem with using a digital caliper is that your measurements may always vary depending upon the force applied by your thumb, or where the part of the jaw of the caliper, the standard, is located, because there will always be the distortions. Take for example this is giving us a reading of 24.99, and now it just gave us a reading of 24.98. So what are we to do? Okay, so let me show you how I accomplished doing that. So what I did was, I first calibrated the smallest micrometer, the 0 to 25 micrometer. Okay, I first calibrated this. I set this to 0. Okay, so now we've got that to 0. So now we can use this micrometer to check if this 25 millimeter gauge standard is exactly true. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's do that now. By the way, I'm doing this in the bed, so because we cannot afford to basically drop this, it might get kinked and ruin its precision. So right now it is giving us a reading of exactly 25 millimeters. So we can say that this 25 millimeter standard right here, we'll lock that down. Okay, try to slide this in between the anvil and the spindle. Should be able to do that. So we are now sure that this 25 millimeter standard is true. Now if we are going to measure that again with a digital caliper, it's giving us a reading of 24.99. However, on this micrometer, it is exactly 25 millimeters. Okay, so now we can confidently use this 25 millimeter standard to calibrate our next micrometer, next range micrometer, which is 25 to 50 millimeter. So now we've got that to 0. By the way, I've already calibrated all these calipers. I'm only doing this in order to show you as to how I manage to tell as to whether or not all these standards are true, and I could correctly calibrate all the set of micrometers. So now we do that. We slide the standard in between the anvil and the spindle. Should be able to do that. Now we've got this 25 to 50 millimeter micrometer set to 0. Okay, so now we can use this micrometer to check if this standard right here, which is the next standard, the 50 millimeter standard, whether or not this standard is true. Okay. Okay, so let's wipe the spindle, make sure there's no dirt on there. Let's wipe the standard as well. So now we can use to measure and see if this 50 millimeter standard is exactly true. Okay, so it's giving us a reading of exactly 50 millimeters. However, if we're going to use the caliper to check whether or not it's true, it's giving you a different result. It's 49.98. Might lead you to think that this is not exactly true. So, however, on this micrometer right here, it's giving you exactly a reading of 50 millimeters. Okay, so right now, again, let's move up. We can use this 50 millimeter standard, confidently use this 50 millimeter standard to calibrate our next range micrometer, which is the 50 to 75. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so right now this 50 to 75 micrometer is calibrated. So again, we check. It should be not too tight and not too loose, but you should be able to slide the standard in between the anvil and the spindle, like so. Okay, we've locked it down, so we take this down. So right now we can be certain to use this 50 to 75 micrometer to check if the next range standard is exactly true. We will do that now. Okay, this is the 75 millimeter standard. Okay, so let's put that in between the anvil and the spindle. So okay, so right now this micrometer is giving us a reading of exactly 75 millimeters. So we are now certain, confident, that this 75 millimeter standard is indeed 75 millimeters. However, let's do that measurement again with a digital caliper. It is giving us a reading of 74.97. So if you're going to trust this caliper, it may lead you to believe that this standard right here is off or not exactly true. But using a micrometer, we can see that this 75 millimeter standard is exactly true. So now we can confidently use the 75 millimeter standard to again calibrate our next range micrometer, which is range 75 to 100 mm. So, and so forth. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so right now it is giving us a reading of 0. Okay, you can see that. So it's not exactly 0. Let's do that again. If not, then we are going to calibrate that. Okay, let's wipe the spindle and the anvil as well as the standard. So it's not exactly 0, so let's do some minor adjustments. So let's lock that down. Let's use the bigger end of the adjusting wrench, and we are going to pull this barrel like so, ever so slowly. Okay. Okay, so let's measure that again. I hope that was caught on camera. Okay, so right now we're exactly on 0. Okay, so let's check again. Let's do that. Should be able to slide freely in between the anvil and the spindle. Not too light, not too tight, not too loose. So right now, again, we can confidently use this micrometer to check if this standard right here, the next standard is 100 millimeters, is exactly true. So let's do that next. So let's check for the trueness of this 100 millimeter standard. So it is giving us a reading of exactly 100 millimeters. Now again, if you're going to use a digital caliper to measure this, it's giving us a reading of 99.96. So if you're going to trust this, it may lead you to believe that this standard right here is off by 0.04 millimeters. However, if we're going to use the micrometer, it is telling us that this standard right here is exactly 100 millimeters. So right now, let's move on. We can confidently use this 100 millimeters standard to calibrate this next range micrometer, which is the 100 to 120 millimeter micrometer. Okay, so let's do that next. Okay. So we are now exactly at 0. Let's check if it's able to slide in between the anvil and the spindle freely, well, at least smoothly, not too tight, not too loose. So right now we are confident that this micrometer is calibrated, and we can now use this micrometer to check our next, which is the last gauge standard, which is the 125 millimeter gauge standard. Now again, if we are going to use the caliper to measure this, it's giving us a reading of 124.93. Okay, so now we can confidently use this micrometer to check the trueness of this 125 millimeter gauge standard. Okay, so it's giving us a reading of exactly 125 millimeters. Again, let's check to see. Should be able to do that. So now we can say that this standard right here is exactly 125 millimeters, as opposed to the digital caliper measurement 124.96 95. So right now we can confidently use this 125 millimeter standard to check and calibrate the biggest micrometer, which is the range 125 to 150 millimeters. Okay, so let me do that next. Okay, so let's lock the spindle, check if again it should be able to smoothly slide in between the anvil and the spindle. So it does. So right now we are confident that this micrometer is calibrated. So anyway, like you've seen earlier, if there are misalignment, it's the same procedure with this set of micrometers. Lock it down, lock the spindle down, clamp this on a vice grip, unloosen the ratchet, pull the thimble out, and then set it to the proper alignment, and then lock everything down, and that's the way you calibrate it. So that's it. So anyway, if you like this video, please subscribe and like. Thank you for watching. By the way, I do not advertise for this. Okay, so anyway, thank you for watching.